I guess before we start, there were a couple questions in the chat we can get to. So the first one is pre-thaw. Would you camp on a frozen lake? Is that an okay thing to do, or would you recommend not doing that at all?
I've camped on a whole hell of a lot of frozen lakes. It's going to look like a meadow. What you're looking for to confirm one or the other is whether you have access to water at the inflow and the outflow of that particular bowl you're in. And if you look upstream and at the edge of this bowl and you see open water, okay, then it's a lake, maybe. Look for the outflow, see if there's open water over there. Then the next thing you're looking for, as far as knowing whether it's safe to cross that lake, which I think is part of the question. You were talking about camping on it, but first thing is, can I walk on it? Remember that you're not walking on just a little ice layer. You're walking on a 2 or 4 foot thick water impregnated snow mass that has consolidated and refrozen, and it's thick. So when it gets soft, it'll thin out, is what these things do. Where the water is moving the fastest, inflow and outflow, that will erode the ice and the snow from underneath, and it will thin out faster there. So that's why you look for open water at the inflow and outflow. But you can still have a perfectly stable lake surface to walk across, and I've hauled my sled, I'll cross plenty of them. If you see white, there's an expression I like to use where we say walk on white. And what I'm talking about there, whether you're crossing a creek, you're crossing a lake, or even a marshy meadow, if there's enough snow under your feet that it's stable and thick enough to walk on, it'll be white in color. If it's starting to thin and you're getting a lot more moisture coming up toward the surface now because the whole thing is thinner, then the surface color will be a little more gray, a little more blue, a little darker. So if there's, like, sometimes I've gone across lakes and I've gone across meadows where I will zigzag my way, and I'm kind of like jumping from, like bears do when they want to hide their tracks. They'll jump from bush to bush to bush. And you do the same kind of stuff. You walk from white hump to white hump to white hump and work your way across the whatever it is you're on, because the snow will be thicker underfoot. So walk on white is a good takeaway expression. Look for cracking around the edge of the lake. It'll as it thins overall, it'll pull away. It'll thin on the sides, and then it'll sort of contract toward the center, and you'll get these goofy crack lines that run perfectly around the lake. Doesn't mean it's dangerous. It should just give you a heads up that to look for other signs like bluing and dark gray spots and stuff like that out there. Wind loves to transport snow onto lakes, blows it off the ridges, and what's below the ridge is the lake. So lakes get a whole lot of snow piled up on them. So just because you may see some cracking doesn't mean that you can't walk on white across the thing. Obviously, pole ahead, jump up and down once in a while. Hopefully, jump up and down at the edge of the lake so that you can, gauge should you pop through, you're going to land on the rocks and the bushes at the edge of the lake. And if you do pop through, then maybe, I think I'll go around this lake rather than across it. So can you camp on a lake? Hell yeah. What if that lake is completely frozen? There's no open water on the inlet or the outlet. Now, what do you do for a water supply? Dig a hole. I've done this many times, many times, camping up high in the Sierra. An ice axe will help a whole lot better for digging, because you can use the adze. This is called the adze, and you can use the adze for chopping and clearing, and you can use the shaft for popping through. Once you can pop through that 2 or 3 feet of water saturated frozen snowpack, then it will percolate up to the top of the hole or somewhere within reach, and you can pump out of there or dip out of there. But if you've only got like a whippet, this guy is probably not the best for digging holes, but you can dig, and it just may take a little longer, and you may end up using your hands more than you'd like. So carry 2 pair of gloves, and hopefully have a really durable exterior. I know that means that it's, I have some props I could show you, but I didn't bring it out here. I know that those gloves are going to be bulkier and heavier. So you got to know the conditions you're going into. Am I going to have to get water through a frozen lake by digging a hole? Will I have an ice axe? No, I'm going to have my whippet. Okay, I might want to have more durable gloves. So by understanding the conditions you're going into, you can be prepared enough to bring the right stuff.
Thumbs up. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we went over this last night, Ned, but do you have an update on possibly an in-person training along the PCT? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect, because that's what everybody's asking. Everybody wants to, once they realize that they got a certain start date, and sometimes your start dates that you got weren't the ones that you wanted, and now you're having to enter the mountains earlier than you would like, than you're skilled at doing. Now you're going to have to take a class. You're going to have to understand something. And clearly, guys, I used to do a 3-day weekend thing, and we'd really do a lot of over snow navigation. We do a lot of distance walking, so people could realize that, trying to do 5 miles in really soft snow it'll take all day. And that some of these concepts simply do not sink into people's heads because they've never been out in it. They never had to wrestle with the idea and actually physically do it. So having at least a 1-day class, a clinic, where you talk about a lot, but you're actually out in it, you can feel differences in the snowpack. You can understand that by doing certain techniques in balance control, you can avoid the fall, and you get the feeling. The feeling is priceless. We can understand. So there's an expression, Carol, maybe you remember it. There's an expression about I listen, I hear whatever, but I remember better by doing, is what I'm getting at. And that's totally true. Now, will I be able to teach any classes this year, or are there any classes out there designed for summer hikers who want to hike on the bumpers, the border seasons, like fall and spring? Most schools are catered toward a bigger audience. We're not the biggest audience yet, but we are growing. So you'll find a lot of climbing schools. You'll find a fair number of backpacking type things. Hey, let's go down to Peru and do whatever. You guys are a select bunch. And that's why I started mountain education, based on my 1974 through hike, where I realized people are freaking dying in the mountains in the spring because they're leaving college, for example. And a thing that happened to me on Mount San Jacinto, I rescued 5 people who thought they were going to die in the middle of the night. I found them out in the meadow, and they were wearing tennis shoes and shorts and T-shirts. And the 3 of the 5 of them were already hypothermic, and they didn't know where the trail was. They had no clue what they were walking into in the summer. But anyway, so if you can find a school somewhere, and here I have to direct you to the most likely source, that caters to the summer hiker wanting to get out on snow, then that's the killer thing. Where are they going to be? They're probably, because it's a smaller audience, they're probably going to be in the community colleges in mountain towns. So they're in a mountain town, there's snow right there. Maybe there's a ski area right there. I'm thinking of South Lake Tahoe, for example, where I taught for 8 years an EMT class. And we had a wilderness program. So go online, go look at these, find a town, look at the college nearby, see if they have a wilderness program. They're probably going to have a backpacking thing. They might have avalanche classes because they're right there at the ski area. The ski area people need to be certified in avalanche rescue. They got to go to a school somewhere. Some of this stuff will help you get prepared to get the skills you need to, 1, learn how to walk on snow, various angles of it. Learn how to identify the structure of the snow. How stable is it? Is there a way to predict if it's going to move suddenly or not before I go out on it? 3, how to navigate when you can't see the trail. There's no trail signs in the trees. There's nothing. How do you know where the hell you're going? Well, you can cheat. And learning how to cheat is really the name of the game. GPS and reading a topo map. You've got to get to the point where, and I know I'm off on a tangent, you got to get to the point where you can look at your one-dimensional topo map and see it in 3 dimensions jump off the page. You've got to be able to get to that point. And it's not that rough, especially if you've got someone who can take you out on the snow and show you by taking the map and learning how to orient this thing based on what you see and what you see. And if you see a ridge, here, and you see it out there, oh, I'm going to point my map and the ridge on my map to the ridge over there. And now I'm oriented. Now everything else around you falls into place, and you know where you are, and you know the dangers that are in certain areas because of what the map tells you. So then you know where to go. You don't have to follow the trail. The trail is oftentimes the most dangerous route when it's covered with snow. But unless you get out there, you really don't know this stuff. Unless somebody hammers it into your head, you don't know this stuff. This is the reality. If I can keep you guys safe for as long as possible, to where you're staying on trail as long as possible, then you will find the benefits of the wilderness life. If you're constantly having troubles and you're constantly going into town and it's just a drag, your gear's not working, you weren't properly prepared, you're not going to have fun. And I want you to have fun. So that's why I'm trying to hammer this stuff into your heads. Southbound, Seattle Mountaineers may have something, Mazama something or other. You know what I'd almost do if I were you guys? Call the Goat's Beard in Mazama and see if some of their employees who have some savvy might bust loose and go teach you the ups and downs of self-arrest and how to stay balanced on steep snow and how to follow a trail when you can't see it. That's really what it's going to boil down to. Now, there is a guy up in the Pacific Northwest who does some classes for free. He's a former thru hiker, I think. I can't remember his name right now, but he teaches kind of on the Olympic Peninsula over there. You might investigate it, and if I can remember, I'll post it somewhere.
Perfect. Okay. That's great. And keep us updated on all of that.
Yeah.
What temperatures can I expect on Hart's Pass in the beginning of June, day and night temperatures? And how does this compare to the Sierras in the end of June? So he was a 2019 hiker, so has experienced those temperatures. But I think what he's really getting at is, how does that compare?
They can be worlds apart.
Yeah.
You are closer to the ocean in the Pacific Northwest than you are in the Sierra. So therefore, there's a hell of a lot more humidity in the Pacific Northwest that's going to affect how the temperature feels. The more humid the air is, it's going to feel colder. In the Sierra, it's very dry. So what you experienced, if I'm hearing this correctly, what you experienced in June in the Sierra, which is hell in the middle of the thaw, where it can be 70 degrees on the snow, you may go up there at the beginning of June off of Hart's Pass and it's freaking winter. You could have nasty conditions, or you could maybe be after a drought winter. You could be in a thaw condition and it's somewhat warm, but it's not going to, I would say it's nowhere near going to be as warm as the Sierra. So I would gauge and gear up and prepare for colder temperatures, meaning, long underwear, multiple layers up top, a couple pairs of gloves, few pairs of socks, nice warm hat, that kind of stuff. Never forget also these guys. Never forget your glasses. Those things will protect your eyes from getting burn retinas. And that happens when you're on snow in thaw conditions where there's a lot of sunlight and it's really intense. Thankfully, you guys are going to be under trees a lot, which for the exposure to the sun is great. But if you fall down and go boom against a tree, it's not good.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify something. Something was lost in translation. But he's saying Hart's Pass in July, not June. So sorry about that. Okay. Yeah.
So the beginning of July on Hart's Pass. It will be warmer. That's when a lot of the locals, after a normal winter or a drought winter, the locals are already up there. Yeah, it will be warmer. It'll be more summer-like. The beginning of July, you'll still have long stretches of snow fields. These aren't patches of snow. There'll be entire open bowls that you're going to have to traverse, go up, down, or across. We call them snow fields. And yeah, it could be pretty warm. So, it's going to be, it's going to be like what you experienced. Okay. So I'll go with you on that. Yeah, I probably now plan for a warmer, more summer-like air conditions and weather in July after a drought or normal winter. Right now, they're not having a normal winter, or they were having a heavy winter up there. It kind of slid back toward a normal winter as far as snowpack, but winter's far from over.
Okay, we're going back to gear. So are you recommending a whippet over an ice axe and hiker crampons over micro spikes?
Absolutely, but it depends whether let's deal with the micro spikes versus hiking crampons. If there's a boot track present, these are fine. The key is that the trail is flat side to side, and just kind of hammer it home. Here's your slope again. You need to go across the slope. If the slope has been packed, you're not going to be walking on this surface. You're going to be walking on this surface. There's going to be a flat trail pounded in the surface of the snow. So therefore, micro spikes with their, little teeth. I don't know if you can see, they're pretty little teeth compared, there we go. So if you're going to be a forerunner and you anticipate consolidated snow that's hard, this is the only way to go. Will hiking crampons work in softer snow? Hell yeah, big deal. Will these work on hard surface? Not so much. These will do fine for both hard and soft. These not so well with hard. So it's going to depend upon, and this, you guys all have to do this, in the couple of months before your start date, start catching up on what kind of storms have been blowing through the Pacific Northwest. Find out when the last one was. Find out what the temperature trends are. Everything is all about trending, Is it gradually getting warmer? Has the thaw already started? Call Goat Spirit and talk to those guys. Hey, have you been out up on the Crest Trail in the last week? What was it like? What are the temperatures like? What are the snow conditions like? So that's crucial, because then you know what to start with. Because then nobody wants to start with a pack that's too heavy, but you don't want us to go without the right safety tools. You can't go wrong with hiking crampons. I mean, I swear to God, they're light, but it isn't the tool that's going to keep you safe. It's what's between your ears. It's identifying the risk ahead and knowing, oh man, no way, not doing that, or knowing how to get around it. So the tools help, but that's what tools do. They help you do something. You got to decide for yourself if you should be doing it.
What about the whippet versus the ice axe? Or did you go over that?
No, well, I said it earlier, but it's good to go over it. Once again, this puppy is the definitive tool. That's all fine and dandy. Are you trained as climbers? Do you need to use an ice axe as a climber would, as an uphill anchor, so that should you fall, you have sunk it in all the way? Okay, let's just pretend. Here we go. Here's your slope. This is your brain on drugs, right? Okay, so this is your slope, and you're going across it. Your ice axe is going to be in your uphill hand. It's going to be in your left hand, as I'm going that way. Your downhill hand is just going to have your pole. So your downhill hand is going to be protecting your balance on the downhill side. The downhill pole is placed at 3 o'clock near your foot or slightly downhill of your foot. In this case, it'd be your right foot. Should you lose your balance, what's going to happen? Your head is going to start tipping downhill. The only way to stop that movement is to be able to resist by pushing against something with your arm connected to your shoulder and your upper body. That's going to force your body back into plumb, if not push your body toward the hill so you land on your butt instead of landing on your face. The pole is what you push against. If your pole does not have snow baskets, when you push on it in an emergency situation, especially if you're poling into soft snow, it's just going to sink. And if there's no resistance, to your push at the handle, because there's no basket at the other end, then the pole sinks and then you go with it. And then you become the yard sale that tumbles down the hillside. Most hikers don't know when to stop. They don't want to stop and take off the pack, untie this thing, tie a pole back on, throw the damn pack on, and then go 30 feet across what might be the only risk, and then do it all over again. So they don't do it. And then you find them out on the base of Forester, where I've watched them, where I'm teaching my classes, and they're zooming by me talking about getting the hell off the hill to go into the nearest town and get the biggest burger and pizza and beer and all that sort of stuff. And they're at risk because they're not protected. They have no they have no poles in their hand because they're holding an ice axe in the uphill hand. Let's just say they were smart enough. So now they have the ice axe in the uphill hand, but they don't know anything about, and this is where I was going. So now this is good. So you're on a steep slope. They are walking along and they're letting the tip or point of the axe, this is the point right here, they're using it like a ski pole. And they're just kind of like tapping the surface, la-di-da, going across the slope. That's not what an ice axe is for. It's supposed to be your anchor. It is supposed to be plunged all the way in to its head. The head is up here. Shaft, point. Adze, the adze is this guy, and the pick is this guy. You're supposed to sink this all the way into the snow so that it becomes an anchor. You are attached to your ice axe by a tether. If you should fall, you're connected to this. This is an anchor. So all you do is just bounce onto the snow, but you don't tumble down it. Now you're connected. You're anchored into the slope. You don't, die in the fall. It usually isn't the initial contact with the snow that kills you. It's the impact with the tree, the boulder, the creek, the lake on the bottom. It's that sudden high velocity stuff. So most through hikers don't do that. So if they, one, don't know how to identify the risk, if they, two, don't want to take the ice axe off their pack, then what good is anything? If I can get them to consider always having a self-arrest tool in their hand should they go down, because it's connected to their pole, solves both things. They don't need a hell of a lot of training. The pole prevents the loss of balance, and the pick at the end self-arrests you if you know how. So really all you need to do is learn how to be balanced on snow, learn how to go up and down and across it safely while maintaining your balance, and then how to self-arrest. And it doesn't take more than a couple hours to teach all of that. Navigation takes longer. But that's why we can do it as a clinic. It's kind of an intense, but you get the feeling of it. So I am a firm advocate for a self-arrest pole for a summer hiker who doesn't have a clue. At least now he'll have something in his hands. Most summer hikers, although, do not know how to use poles on snow. They're used to swinging their poles next to their feet, right? They're hiking in an 18-inch, 24-inch wide summer trough of a gravel trail, and you see all the pole punctures in the grass on either side of the trail. And so they're swinging their poles next to their feet, and they're not thinking or realizing a pole is the extension of their arm. Their arm is there to control where the upper body goes. Should they accidentally on the summer trail toe into a rock or toe into a root, and suddenly they're losing their balance, they can stab out with their poles, their extensions of their arm, to maintain their balance. But on snow, is it different? Yeah, because you need to have a wider base of support, because you don't know if you're going to be able to catch yourself. So you want to prevent the fall, not by swinging your poles next to your body, but by swinging your poles much further out, 10 and 2 o'clock, 10 and 3 o'clock, that kind of thing, depending upon what you're doing, because it's all about controlling your body. On a summer trail, you got a hell of a lot of traction. You're probably not going to ever catch your balance unless you were yakking too much about something else, you know, with the buddy behind you or the buddy in front of you, and you're just simply not paying attention. It happens all the time. But once you get trail strong, your muscles get strong enough to be able to catch yourself, and you just laugh about it and keep going. You don't think twice about it. But you're starting heart's path, out of shape, non-specific muscle training. Now you got to get the specific muscles trained. So when you lose your balance, you've got something to catch your balance with. It's really South balance sounds nice, but it really does have its higher learning curve, perhaps. You know, timing wise, it's kind of nice because you can start late. But condition wise, the condition of the environment and the condition of you, it's not the best.
Okay, great info.